Welcome to the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast, brought to you by the Arkansas Cattlemen's Association. Here, we dive into the heart of Arkansas's cattle industry, where legislation, education, advocacy, and development come together to support the hardworking cattle producers of the natural state. Whether you're in the pasture or on the road, this is your connection to the people, policies, and programs shaping the future of our industry. Hello and welcome back to the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast. I am your co-host, Michelle Buffkin Horton.
And I'm your other co-host, Norley Townsend.
And I say welcome back, and I mean that. Like, it's been a hot second since
it's been a minute.
We've done a podcast. But we have really good reasons. And so for our audio listeners, if you don't know, you're not going to know, but behind us, it looks like there's a whole new backdrop. For the people who are watching us online, you're going to notice this is different. It's because it's different. Mm-hmm. We're in a whole new building, in a whole new part of town. So it's exciting. And then also for anyone listening, you can tell, like, my voice sounds wonderful. This is better than 2 weeks ago when I landed in DC and didn't have a voice at all. And I was whispering like this during all of our legislative meetings. It was ridiculous, but it was great. We had a good team with us. They were able to talk. So I'm still recovering from the daycare crud that my 4-month-old daughter gave to me. So thank you to the daycare beings that did that. But we've been busy. We wrapped up area conferences. We had we had fiscal session. We moved offices. It feels like we've lived 10 lives.
Yep. It all hit us at once, but we're finally kind of catching our breath a little bit. But
yeah. So the last episode we did was wrapping up at the end of March and had Michael Watkins from Watkins Cattle on, and it was great. It was wonderful. I'm very glad to do it. But then everything else kind of happened. So, but we are back. And as I alluded to, we're back with a legislative update. We're back with the Hats on the Hill series. And for our video listeners, you may notice with the new backdrop, there's also a new hat location when it's not on the table because the table is tiny and doesn't hold a lot. And so it's on our little barn door backdrop up here. And it is my newest hat, thanks to Randy Black, of course. Mm-hmm. We don't get hats any other way than Randy's Goodwill finds and eBay finds. And so, we've got a Resist All new hat up there. Really excited about it. Really like it. It looked really good at the Capitol for session the last 3-4 days that I had it there. So that's our hat of the week.
And y'all let us know if y'all like the new backdrop. If y'all would have any ideas about it changing or anything, let us know because we just kind of threw it together. I mean, we like it right now, but
we
thought about throwing a cowhide on top of it. I don't know. Yeah,
it is so if those of you listening, it's a wood, barn door looking, literally wood divider. Because the room that we're in, the podcast office, in this office, in this building is not, it's actually, I was going to say it's not as big, but it's actually bigger than the old podcast office, and it has less stuff in it, but we've got some storage items behind there because we have a lot less storage in this new building. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to figure out where everything lives. Because we've learned we have a lot of things that are one-off items, that we need one time a year, toy tractors for convention and wheelbarrows for convention and all of this stuff that in the past it just lived in huge closets we had in downstairs in the old building, and we don't have that now, so it's fine. We're just adapting. Mm-hmm. But
rolling with the punches.
Yeah. So that's your life building update. We'll do a video tour some point in time. We're recording this the week of our board meeting, and so we're finalizing the last few things here within the building, and then we'll give you all a tour and kind of show you the new ACA home.
Yeah. So let's go with our Hats on the Hill update. Yeah. So let's start with the federal update. You said you went to D.C. and the Farm Bill passed the House, and what does that mean for cattle producers right now?
Yeah. So some of the biggest things are the fact that, one, the Farm Bill did finally pass the House, but I'll backtrack and start with D.C. So we had a group of 7 of us go to D.C. here a couple weeks ago in the middle of April. We flew up to DC for our national affiliates legislative conference, and so we were able to go to Hill visit. So we visited with 4 of our 6 federal delegations and then staff for the other 2, and able to visit with them, talk to them about some of the priorities that ACA is working on and some issues we're concerned about. And then we're able to go and talk to other states from across the nation of what issues are facing them, and hear from agencies from within DC. So we heard from USDA, we heard from the EPA, we heard from Food Safety Inspection Services. We've heard from a lot of different people of some different issues that are coming up in DC. Excuse me. You're going to hear that a lot. Sorry. And so I'll try to mute myself each time, though. I did not that time. But one of the biggest things we talked about while we were in D.C. was the Farm Bill. And so we were there before it was introduced on the floor. It had gone through committee, but it had not been introduced to the House floor yet. And so it was introduced the week after we came. And it was a tumultuous 24-hour period. It feels like at one point it was like, all right, Farm Bill's off the table. Like, the House is still stuck on funding for DHS. It's not going to move. At 6 p.m. that night, they're like, all right, just kidding, it's going to move. And they're going to introduce it on the floor. Like, no, they're not. Like, they're still sitting here debating. So I think they were voting on some of those amendments to the Farm Bill at like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. And then they had recessed and came back to continue voting on the amendments for the Farm Bill. There were 500 amendments introduced to the Farm Bill. And so they were voting on those and finally ended up passing the next day after it was introduced. And so for cattle producers, a lot of people are confused about or are not as concerned about the Farm Bill right now because it's quote-unquote the skinny Farm Bill or the Farm Bill 2.0. Because a lot of the issues that we wanted passed in the Farm Bill originally were passed in the One Big Beautiful Bill this time last year, or in July of last year. And so there's not as much in there as there usually is for cattle, but big pieces for us, and protects the livestock carve-out and EQIP programs. It addresses Prop 12 to protect interstate livestock production, which we're going to talk about. A strengthened foreign animal disease preparedness, like we've been talking a lot about New World Screwworm, we talk about Asian Longhorn Tick, all of these things. And so it continued funding the three-legged stool is what we call it. And so making sure we have a vaccine bank and we have all of these pieces for foreign animal disease preparedness. And so there are a lot of good things in there. So we're really excited for it moving forward and seeing what happens. Coming up. Sorry, I'm really trying hard not to cough in your ears right now.
You're good. And so you mentioned some of them, but what were the biggest wins in the House version that producers need to know?
All right. So the biggest wins, and this will actually probably take the next question too. I should have written these slightly better, but that's fine. Limited sleep and cold medicine, great combo. The biggest ones in the House, I think one of the biggest ones is the Prop 12 Prop 12 fix. So if you don't know, the Prop 12 is a Proposition 12 in California. It's about farrowing crates for pigs, and so gestation crates for pigs. And so they were saying, hey, like if you raise your pigs in a gestation crate, you cannot sell the meat here in California. Same thing with a lot of times it's like poultry or range-free eggs as well. I use pigs specifically, but it's not necessarily always that. So it can apply to eggs and chickens as well. And so any kind of caged animal essentially. And so what this proposition did, or what this fix did in the Farm Bill, was say that one state cannot control interstate movement of livestock production. So if you were raising animals in Arkansas, you wanted to sell it to California, you would have to follow the California law, which is you can't, I shouldn't use air quotes, it was a law. In California, you couldn't sell animals that had been raised in a cage. And so that's not necessarily, like we in Arkansas shouldn't have to answer to laws in other states. And so this solution in the Farm Bill protected that and said interstate laws are the same. Like federal laws are going to be the winner here. And so it makes it where we can continue raising livestock. I was going to say cattle, but again, not necessarily particular to cattle. But we've talked about it before. We're going to talk about it later on today, is like the breakdown of like how quickly you can go from, okay, here's your rule for poultry, or here's your rule for swine, to here's a new rule for cattle. And so that's why we were engaged in that one. And so that's going to be one of the really big wins for producers.
So what happens next in the Senate, and what role does Senator John Bozeman play in that?
Yeah, so we've talked about it before. We'll talk about it for as long as we can. We're very lucky to have Senator Bozeman as the chair of the Senate Ag Committee. And so the bill is passed the House, and so it now has to be passed the Senate. And so it'll go to the Senate Ag Committee, and they'll do a markup. And so it'll either be, they have a couple options there. They can either be, they can mark up the actual bill that the House sent over, or they can mark up the Senate version of the Farm Bill, and then put that in, if it passes, put that in the Senate floor. But the two have to marry. They have to match each other. And so Senator Bozeman's going to continue looking at some of the Farm Bill pieces and looking at that. And so it'll go to Senate Ag Committee and get marked up, and if it passes out of that committee, it will then go to the Senate floor for voting. And again, it's going to be open to amendments. It's going to have all the things, so it should be an interesting time once again for the for the Senate side, even though it's already passed the House. So it's a lot of times people are like, oh, like, it's an easy, like, no, it's not an easy process at all. That's why there's so few pieces of legislation moving through DC right now.
And animal health remains a priority, and what threats are at top of the mind right now, including the longhorn Asian tick? Yeah, so a lot of times we've been talking about the New World screwworm, and that's a big piece, and that's a big scary thing because it has the ability, it has this, not nostalgia, but like as this reputation, because producers have lived through surviving the New World screwworm. They remember a lot of times when they were kids having to check all these animals, having to dip any animal before it came on their property, having to quarantine, how to do all these things. And so they vividly remember that. And so they have that scary memory here. And so that's always going to be an issue. And so that was something that was addressed in the Farm Bill, is continuing to make sure we have funding to fight the New World screwworm. But for Arkansas as well, one of the other things we're really concerned about is the Asian longhorn tick. And so it's the tick that causes thaliariosis. And so if you don't know thaliaria, either way, if you want to do it, if you want to go Latin or not, it's a disease that it mimics anaplasmosis. And so it attacks cattle and makes them waste away. Ends up right now, there's very little treatment, very little prevention for it. And so we were reaching out when we were in DC, talking to our federal delegation about funding for USDA research and funding for the ability to find either disease treatments or prevention for this, but also just trying to figure out what in the heck it is and how widespread it is. I know we have it probably 15-ish counties here in the state, but that's only because they're testing within those counties. Like, if we had the ability to test every single animal every single time, like, it's probably a lot more widespread than we think. And so that's going to be a big issue for us, especially as we enter into May. Weather's warming up. I say that as I'm sitting here in a like sweater because it's actually kind of chilly. But ticks are going to be becoming a problem here very quickly. And so we're hopefully not going to, but unfortunately probably going to see the spread of thaliaria pretty quick again, and the spread of the Asian longhorn tick. One of the scary things about this tick, and I know we had a podcast with Dr. Kirsten Midkiff a couple months ago, where she talked about New World screwworm and the tick. And the scary thing about it for me is the fact that they can reproduce with no male. And so they can produce like thousands upon thousands of eggs every single day. And so it grows exponentially. And so you get research funding and some opportunities there to help fight off and stave this disease. It's going to be, I think it started kind of within the Northeast or like Virginia and up a little bit. And it started working its way over. And so Arkansas has, like I said, fewer than 20 counties that have it right now that have been tested, but it has the ability to continue growing pretty quickly once we reach into the summer months. And talking about another nuisance we deal with, where does the Black Vulture Relief Act stand, and why is the current permit process failing producers?
Yeah, so the Black Vulture Relief Act, so if you don't remember, black vultures are on the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So they're protected by the MTBA. And so you have to have a permit to kill them. And so right now, you can go to Fish and Wildlife, or you can go to Farm Bureau and get a permit. That permit gives you ability to kill 3.
because these vultures always come in groups of 3 only, of course. And so that permit gives you the ability to kill 3 a year, and that is it. And so Congressman Westerman is the chair of the Natural Resources Committee in the House, and he has marked up the Black Vulture Relief Act. Excuse me. And the majority of our federal delegation has signed on as co-sponsors of this bill because they know how detrimental this is to the state's agriculture industry. And so what the act does is says, instead of having to go and get a permit that only allows you to take 3 birds, what the Black Vulture Relief Act does is saying, okay, well, you can take as many birds as you need in a year, and you just tell us at the end of the year how many you killed. And so that way they can still track the numbers, they can still know where they stand population-wise, but you're not limited to those 3 birds. And so we're hoping to see that move forward. Like I said, it's been marked up in committee. We're waiting to see that go through the House. And so we're excited. We're really grateful for the work Congressman Westerman has done on that, because our entire federal delegation knows how much of a nuisance these birds are. And the fact that it looks a little interesting when you look at the permitting numbers, because there's never the permits numbers are pretty low, because people are like, oh, well, there's not that many birds. Like, no, we just don't have the ability to always get you can only get 1 permit. And so, like, you're very limited in the number of permits you can get. And so the birds population grossly outweighs and outnumbers the number of permits that are available, or the number of people that could get one. And so we're hoping to see some progress on that. Again, it'll be introduced to the House, and we'll see what happens, and it'll go over to the Senate and have to make its way through there. But we're really grateful for our delegation for continuing to fight for that. I think it was in the last Congress as well, the same bill, and so they're still continuing the good fight, trying to help us out within the Black Vulture Relief Act.
Yeah, and switching gears to the state, Arkansas wrapped up its fiscal session. What were the biggest agriculture takeaways?
Yeah. So one really good thing is if you don't know, so state of Arkansas only does a legislative session every other year. So we did a fiscal this year, which means we looked at budgets, and that was about it. It was about a 3-week session, pretty short. And so we were able to make sure that our friends, because as you know or may not know, ACA gets no funding from the state legislature. And so what we're doing is looking at budgets for our friends in the Department of Agriculture and the friends at the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture. And so we were able to make sure their funds were still there this year. The Department of Ag did take a budget cut, as did many state agencies across the board this year. And so we saw that, but making sure they still had the funding to continue providing the resources and the programs that they do for producers. The Division of Ag was actually able to secure a little bit more of appropriations for themselves. But I will say appropriations are not funding. In the state of Arkansas, appropriations just gives you the authority to spend the money. You still have to find the money. And so while they increased their appropriations, it did not increase their actual funding. And so we're working on that because they haven't had a funding increase since 2017. And so almost 10 years ago was the last funding increase for UADA for recurring funding. And so expenses since then have increased by like $22 million. And so they still have almost the same exact amount of money. And so we're trying to find ways to help them fill those gaps and continue providing the work they're doing for producers, which is so important. And so that's one of the big wins there. And so that both of those were really, really glad to see. And then we also saw the UADA get additional appropriations for a federal dollar spend that they had, so they don't need the money necessarily because they have a federal earmark for a new food science building. And so they'll be starting a new food science building here pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah. So what does the fiscal year 2027 state budget mean for cattle producers and rural communities?
Yeah, so this year's budget was about a 3% increase over last year's fiscal year budget. And so most of that going to education and Medicaid or things like that. And so you're not going to see a large increase for agriculture, unfortunately. And so not a huge amount of growth. I mean, a 3% growth sounds small, but then you look at the actual billions of dollars that it is, it adds up pretty quickly. But some of the biggest things for cattle producers are going to be that we did end up looking at. There was $90 million appropriated. Again, appropriation does not mean spending dollars, but $90 million appropriated to counties for property tax relief. So we're hoping to see some of that trickle down to cattle producers and landowners as well. And then after they wrapped up fiscal session, the governor did say if they didn't add any additional funding, spending to their budget than what she had already proposed at that 3%, that they would have a special session to call in and look at the tax percentage increase or the tax percentage decrease overall. And so they wrapped up fiscal session on Thursday, and then they came back that following Monday. The governor called a special session, and they met to decrease the actual income tax percentage. And so it went down 0.2%, went from 4.1 to 3.7, I believe. And so it'll decrease. You're going to see, they estimate about 1 million Arkansans will receive that benefit, or will be able to tell that the decrease happened. And then the issue that we're looking at and we're keeping an eye on is the fact that that's going to decrease state revenues by about $190 million annually. And so very grateful for an income tax relief, but when it's hitting the state of Arkansas at about $200 million annually, less money coming in, the state of Arkansas has to pass a balanced budget. Where does that $200 million come from? And so that's what we're going to be keeping an eye on in the future fiscal sessions and in the legislative sessions coming up, is just making sure that that $200 million isn't going to be paid for by cattle producers and by landowners. And so we'll be keeping an eye on that going forward.
Yeah. And so kind of switching gears here, the Arkansas passed H.R. 1034 supporting poultry producers in the Illinois River watershed. Why should cattle producers care?
Yeah, so I don't remember. Have we talked about the Illinois River watershed on the podcast?
I don't think we have, actually. We talked about it at area conferences.
Yeah. So what I always said at area conferences was like, I'll give a state update, a federal update, and then I have this one thing that doesn't fit in either category, and so it lives by itself, and that's the Illinois River. And so background here, 25 years ago, the state of Oklahoma, which houses the Illinois River watershed, and it bleeds into like Kansas, Missouri, and northwest Arkansas, obviously in Oklahoma. But the state of Oklahoma decided to sue the poultry integrators within the Illinois River watershed, saying they were polluting the water. And so studies were done. All of these things were conducted. They found that there's nominal pollution happening based on the actual studies that were conducted. The state of Oklahoma decided to settle with the poultry integrators, and so they paid money. They moved on. All counts were settled except one. It was 25 years ago. The Attorney General for the state of Oklahoma this year, or last year, recently decided to bring that back. I think it was actually the end of 2025, and so he brought that back forth, and so it was brought back into court and started being discussed again. And so it's been a very convoluted process, and so I'm trying to narrow this down. And so the poultry integrators were ready to settle, and the state of Oklahoma wouldn't, and then ended up the state of Oklahoma, the Attorney General was like, all right, let's settle, let's move on, let's just take some money and be done with this conversation. And the judge said no. And so all the settlements were rejected. And so now it's back in court. Tyson has decided they're going to not renew their contracts within that watershed because they don't want to have the risk to be sued again. And so you're going to see about 100 contracts that are not going to be renewed within the next 5 to 10 years within that area. They've also created a person within the state of Oklahoma, they have created a person within the state of Oklahoma that has the ability to come in and check and see how much poultry litter is being put on pastures in the Illinois River watershed. And so they can cross state lines, they can do that, they can look at all of this data and say, hey, you're going to get fined, you're going to have this, you can't put out more than X number of pounds of poultry litter per square foot. And so a very small number, by the way. And so one of the things that this resolution does is it asks all parties to come back to the table in good faith and try to negotiate a settlement that can move on. And so that way we can not be entering into a very dangerous precedent of a state telling their own producers, their own people that live within their state, but also a state across a state line. So Oklahoma also telling Arkansas what you can and can't do with your land and what you can and can't put on your land, even if you produce the poultry litter yourself. And so this resolution was asking the state of Oklahoma and the judge and poultry integrators to all come back and say, let's try to renegotiate. Let's try to find something that works for everyone. We will see what happens for the cattle producers. Why do we care again? It's poultry. Because, again, it's a very slippery slope from you telling me that I can't raise poultry within this area to you telling me what I can and can't put on my field to you telling me I can't even have cattle within this watershed. And, again, I'll remind you, as we talked about the Buffalo River watershed last year, the entire state of Arkansas is a watershed. And so it's a very dangerous precedent being set here or there in Oklahoma that'll extend over into Arkansas and has the ability to affect the entire nation as well. And so we're going to continue to fight for private property rights because that is what our policy says, and continue to hope and work with the officials in this case to try to see if we can come back to an agreement.
Yeah. And so we already mentioned it before, but going back to area conferences, we wrapped them up. We started them in March, ended them in March. And what stood out the most this year?
Yeah, so area conferences, I think the thing that stood out to me the most was, I don't even know, the excitement. Like, the people were excited and also, I think maybe the nerves. Like, hey, we have really good prices. Like, it's a great time. How long is this going to last? Like, that were so many people that were rightfully so very concerned about the future, about the markets, about where we're going to stand, because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know. And so I think that was one of the biggest things for me was people are still very excited, but like cautiously optimistic, I guess.
Yeah. And with that being said, we fed over 2,700 producers, which is up from last year. What does that say about producer engagement right now?
One, I think it says obviously everybody loves a free steak, and so that doesn't hurt when you're able to offer steak to your members for free. But I think a lot of it is just people know that right now we're in a great position, but we are not always. We've rarely been in a great position within the cattle industry, and so how can we take best advantage of it now to continue being successful even when the markets change? And so I think that's where a lot of our producers are being engaged and trying to figure out is what can we do to be sustainable right now when prices are good and times are great, but also how can we prepare for the inevitable time that's going to come.
Yeah. And vendor participation also grew, and we kind of touched on this last podcast, but why does vendor support matter to these meetings?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is the fact that the vendors make it possible. You can't have these area conferences and a free steak dinner for our members without the vendors. But also, I think the vendors have seen the caliber and the quality of people that attend and the sheer number of people that attend. I mean, 2,700 people at 9 events all over the state. Pretty daggum good. It's hard to get that many people anywhere anymore, and so they can see the benefit there. But they also know that the vendors are trying to have those conversations and build those relationships, so that way they can help them help their products or help their producers with their products. I mean, you heard from Michael, and he was like, yeah, obviously, like, we're doing this because we want to make a living, but we're doing it because we want to help producers too. And so I think we're seeing a lot of our vendors really buy in to how they can help our members succeed.
Yeah, and why are area conferences still one of our most important grassroots touch points?
I mean, it's the sheer number of people. Like, for us, it's a timing thing. Is Norley and I went to every county in the state over the last 2 years ago, starting 2 years ago, and so that was great. That was wonderful. We had the opportunity to see a lot of members, but that was a lot of time. There was a lot of travel. this is a much more efficient way for us to do it. So I mean, we saw 2,700 people, and we see people that we wouldn't necessarily see. Like, they don't always come to convention because it's not in their backyard, or they don't have the time. It's hard for them to get out of the hayfield, and so it's a great opportunity for us to touch base with them and say, hey, here's what the Cattlemen's are working on. Here's what we're doing. Here's why your membership matters.
We come to you.
Yeah. So, for sure.
Let's travel, but it's a good time.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move into the membership update, and then I can finally quit talking and maybe breathe. All right. So it is May. So where do we stand for our last 2 months of our membership drive?
Yeah. So our membership drive has been pretty successful, I think, this year. Right now, we're standing at 4,197 members, and last year we had around 5,800. So almost there. We're slowly but surely growing. Obviously, we have a little less than 2 months left of our membership drive. So yeah.
Perfect. What? Now I've lost my questions, of course. Who are the April? So we just it's in May now. So who won our April incentives, and who sponsored those?
Yes,
and then what we're looking for May.
I will clarify. We ended April with 4,197 members. I still have some memberships on my desk, but we have a system where we have to close out a month before we start a new month, and so I just finished that yesterday, and so our May monthly incentive sponsors is McElhaney Equipment, and they're giving away 2 rolls of hay net wrap and 4 jugs of hydraulic fluid. So really excited about that to give those away. But our April sponsor was Farmers Association, and they gave a ton of feed or ton of mineral out, the Purina Wind and Rain Magnesium Mineral. And those winners were Earl Crumpler out of Ouachita County. He won first place. Second place was Ralph Harris out of Nevada County. And third place was Ron Core out of Independence County. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, very nice. Yep, and so they'll split that fee. They'll be able to get it from their local Farmers Association. And so really grateful for farmers for sponsoring that. Also along with, obviously, looking forward to the May incentives. And so we work really hard every year to try to find things that producers and our members really want. And we would not be possible without our sponsors making that feasible for us. What areas and counties? So we have a goal of 105%. And so what counties and areas are working overtime right now and kind of ahead of the schedule?
Yeah, so there's 2 areas that are at 81% of last year's number, and that is Area 1 and Area 4. But we've already had 2 counties or 2 associations that have already hit the 105%, so they're eligible to hit that $5,000 and split between those. So that is Saline County, and they're currently at 106%, and Arkansas State University, and they're at 129%.
So perfect, yeah. Yeah, and so that 105% is set to be able to aim for a little bit of growth, but keep it feasible, keep it manageable. And so hoping to see, like I said, we have 2 more months of membership, so the full month of May and the full month of June. And so we'll hopefully see a lot more counties reach that 105% and be able to have some additional money for them to spend for county meetings, for education, for scholarships, whatever they see fit.
And like we said, we have a board meeting this weekend, and I put on there the number away they are from the 105%. So if you're wondering about that, contact your state rep. They'll have the information, or just call me or email me and let me know. So a lot of them, they're like 7 away, 8 away, 13 away, 3 away, 2 away, 5 away, 4. Not far off. So
yep. Perfect. And then the last thing we want to talk about is convention. We are full steam ahead planning for convention. And so we were hoping to have registration open by now. But if you don't know, we're going to a new to this staff, I guess, kind of location. And so we're going back to Fort Smith. We haven't been to Fort Smith since 2017. And so we're going to go to Fort Smith Convention Center August 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so really looking forward to it. But we're going to a new place. We're just kind of trying to figure out pricing and details and everything like that before we open up convention registration, but it should be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We do have a couple of, or at least one new thing that's exciting for convention. So we are going to be having a concert in conjunction with the Fort Smith Convention Center and Convention Center Visitors Bureau, I should say. In conjunction with them, we're having a country concert that Friday night of convention, so right after our foundation auction. As soon as that wraps up, we'll be able to go to the theater and hear from a band that is yet to be named, or a person that is yet to be named. And so we're hoping we'll be able to make the announcement at our board meeting on Saturday, but we're waiting on the convention center to get their contracts signed and everything good on their end before they can tell us. And so that's going to be a new addition, really exciting. We get some tickets for our members and attendees, and so those will be in a first come, first served basis. They are free, included with our attendance, and so as you look to register, as you get your registration open, go check that out. Make sure you're going. We're going to have really great educational content again. Really looking forward to it. We've already secured Donnell Brown from R.A. Brown Ranch to come in and talk about breeding and genetics. We've got Dr. Justin Ransom from USDA FSIS, which is the Food Safety Inspection Service, coming in to talk about his department and talk about product of the U.S. labeling and items like that. So we're looking forward to those, and we're working out the final details for the rest of our speakers, but it's shaping up to be a really good convention. Really excited about it, and really looking forward to it. So check it out. Keep an eye on our Facebook page. Keep an eye on our email and email newsletter, and you'll see announcements. You'll see as soon as we open up convention registration, which again should be hopefully in the next week. That's our goal. So really looking forward to it. We hope to see you there.
Yeah. And just another update, I have not sent out membership cards yet. We're waiting on our new database people. I know our database people, they've had some changes, and so we're just waiting on them. Hopefully we'll get membership cards out pretty soon, but have not sent them out yet because we have to manually run those. So, and with everything going on, it's just taking us some time this year. So
Yep. Yeah, we're trying to work smarter, not harder, not do things 3 times.
Yes.
And so ideally, if we have the new database, we'll be able to do that smoothly through there. And then the final reminder, if you have not paid your dues yet, you have until June 30th to pay your dues and keep your membership benefits active. So I encourage you, go online, renew your dues, go to your county meeting, renew your dues, call the office, pay via credit card, however you would like, make it easy. And so make sure you get your dues paid. If you got a renewal notice in the mail, it means you haven't paid your dues yet, or they passed in the mail. Very possible. And so, but we're getting ready to send out the next round of renewal notices here soon. And so if you haven't paid them yet, I encourage you to go ahead and do, because your membership is what makes it possible for us to do the work at the Capitol in Little Rock and in DC on behalf of our members. And so we really appreciate it, for sure.
Yep.
All right. Where can they find us? What can they do?
YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. Subscribe to us, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to our weekly newsletter. That's where all of our updates are, mostly.
Perfect. And we will, now that we're settled, we will see you back here on a more regularly scheduled basis for the Arkansas Business Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Thank y'all. This is the Arkansas Cattle Business Podcast, your trusted source for all things cattle in the natural state.